Hello, welcome back to the Dynasty Grind. Unfortunately, tonight I am the only one here. Russ is not feeling very well at Christmas, which is a shame. And Zach's son is also not feeling very well. I myself am coming off the back of a very long day, and I've got a very long day tomorrow, starting very early. I didn't realize quite how tired I was until I passed out before 9:30. So I'm going to try my best to hang out with you all for a little bit. I'm not sure how long I'm going to be able to survive. But I did want to come on and talk to the faithful Dynasty Grind commenters and listeners for a little while, if only to, no, that's it. Just chat with you all for a while. Most start-sit questions are going to defer straight to my projections. They're out there. They're updated. I did manage to get those updated since that is how I would answer them anyway, and there's going to be no dissent tonight because there are no, people to carry me. Bo Pons, I'm very glad to hear that you were able to pull victory from the jaws of victory this week. Appreciate you coming in and commenting. Should we let Najee perish on the bench or trust Ty again? Yeah, I did read Ty Channel as expected right now to carry the workload. Najee Harris, let's see. Got a better matchup. Right now, it's a pretty close call, but I think I'd still start Najee Harris of a Ty Chandler myself. Despite the glowing ways into the playoffs, that's where I'm at right now. They're both top 30-ish running backs. It's Wednesday, my dudes. Been a while since I made an appearance. Been in the lab, Oh, well, appreciate it, Genji. Started 0-3, now we're in the semifinal. Well, that is good to hear, my friend. Jamar Chase being useless to me in back-to-back years, you gotta love it. Yeah, top dynasty asset. It's been a rough year for the Bengals in general, especially since we just lost the T. Higgins buy window because of his big blow-up game last week. I'm starting Nick Mullins this weekend. Yeah, quarterback's been quite a ride this year. Thoughts on last week's performance, starting Deontay this week after having him on my bench for 2 weeks. Is he a must-start given Mason Rudolph? I don't quite know how to answer all of that put together, especially since I wasn't able to break down that game. I'm behind on my research for this week as well. I can tell you something of Mullins' startability, though, I think. Let's see. He's a top 12 quarterback this weekend. It'd be hard to sit him, I think. Wow, that is 2023 in a nutshell right there, Genji. And my lineup for the Sandmates is Mullins, Kyron, Brees, Hopkins, Waddle, Deontay, Njoku, JT. Please, H8. If you can get happy. It's a pretty 2023 lineup with Kyron and Mullins. I think Kyron especially is going to be a big feature playoff teams or final teams this week. I've been meaning to join and say this, but 5th round alpha strike yet again. Dontavian Wicks is a guy plus Puka. I would take the under on Dontavian. Like I say, I haven't been able to break down that game myself, but I think he's going to be a big phony in terms of breakouts, but that's just my guess based on his trends on his college profile more than anything else. I'm also really sick right now. My head is about to pop. I'm here all night. Well, Genji, you're join the club. I'm not here all night. I could not possibly, not tonight, I'm afraid. Couldn't make it, couldn't survive. And my screen died, by the way, which is why I'm not looking at you all. My second screen died the other day, and I haven't been able to do anything about it. So my camera is where it usually is, but I have to look to the right to read anything you guys have to say. Hey guys, in 1 point PPR, if Nico doesn't play, would you play Foreman, Hunt, DeMarcus Robinson, Dowdle? God, the decisions of the playoffs are always pretty horrible, aren't they? Do I have Nico projected to play right now? I don't. So I said I was going to defer all this to my projections, but I'm putting in the effort that I can. Let's see, DeMarcus Robinson is like wide receiver 80 this week. That's pretty rough. Down. See, this is why you need co-hosts to vent and say things that are smarter than you can possibly imagine saying. It would be a dead heat. I guess I would give Dowdle the edge over DeMarcus. And Hunt. Yeah, that's kind of what I imagine saying. That red zone roll, if nothing else, is a good weekly start. So I think I'd start Hunt if I had to there, man. Oh, I didn't even check Foreman. This is not a fun start-sit list, my man. He comes in pretty close, but I think I'd still stick with Hunt. Point 1 of 2, 1 QB, 12 team, start. Okay, it's all start-sit. I don't see the question. You said 1 or 2, though, so Shoemaker. Contender this year, are you just targeting running backs for seconds? Dude, if you don't know if you're a contender at this point relative to your league and your positioning, I don't know. My evaluation of your team could help. But based on your team in a Dynasty League, 1 QB, Lamar Jackson, you're doing pretty well. Daniel Jones, you're a bit rich at quarterback, but you're fine. Gibbs, Tank, Mercado, I'm not sure. Sean Tucker, I'm not sure who Mercado is. Garrett Wilson, Waddle, DJ Moore, deep at wide receiver, which is nice. Andrews, Kincaid, and you've got 2 seconds from this year's draft. I would say you're a top half team for sure in a 1 quarterback league. Lamar isn't quite the edge that he might be. In a super flex league, your running backs are solid, especially in this landscape. Your wide receivers are good and good deep. And you've got an edge at tight end. But, especially with the running back landscape as it is, if we're talking this year, when you're in the playoffs and you're in the final, or you're pretty close to it, which means you're already a contender because anyone can win in the playoffs. So if we're talking about next year, I would say you're looking to catch the Kyren Williams. The way the running back landscape is at this point, the way to make this team stronger is to try and get stronger at running back. That's your only weakness. And there's no sure-footed way of doing that instead of maybe trying to buy Bijan this offseason. We'll see what happens with CMC in the offseason as well, because we don't need to buy older running backs when we don't need them. We don't need them in the offseason. And this running back class looks a little rough. So having 2 seconds doesn't scare me too much because you're not seeking those ascending wide receivers so much. Because you've already got them. And you got the edge at tight end. Yeah, I would think I would keep trying to acquire. My mind will be on what I have to do to get running backs next season as and when they blow up and show up. So this offseason, I'm looking to add more depth running backs as best I can because your running back list ends pretty quickly here. And in season, obviously, you're going to be hunting them off the waiver wire as heavy as you can. But I think you're contending. Yeah, I don't think you're building or retooling or anything like that. Despite the fact that, running back is where I try and improve. This is a fairly good running back room in the year of football 2023 and 2024 relative to modern dynasty anyway. So, yeah, definitely contender. And if you're 2 seconds to the Ken Walker runner, things become so terrible for Mr. Walker. I think he took a step back this week. He's a top 20 start this week. Yeah, at 2 seconds for Ken Walker anytime will be pretty good for a running back right now. Yeah, especially with that kind of caliber. Grimly 1314, 12 teams through flex PPR and semis. Sell Tua for CMC. You mean to win? It's a super flex, so no. Tua should be worth more than that. But if it's to win, then that guy's holding your feet to the fire, and I'd look for a different running back that maybe came with a plus for an asset like this. I like trading to win. I'm always going to try and trade to win, but you're telling me you can't even get a hold of the Nick Mullins roster? Sorry. Quarterback isn't what you're seeking. Running back is what you're seeking. Alvin Kamara owner, Rashad White owner this week. Karen Williams, unless he's your opponent, or unless any of them are your opponent, I got to expect you can get a running back that is a very strong start this week with something of a better deal. Don't get me wrong, I want CMC and I want to win, but Tua should carry more value than that in a super flex. Trying to win is trying to win, but I gotta hope you have better options, or you're just gonna play the lottery. You could trade for CMC. He has his first bad game ever. And then what? Well, then what's going on? You didn't win and you dropped all that value, and it's going to be a lot of value this offseason between Tua and CMC and the Superflex. It's just that they're asking too much. They should be more reasonable. We'll find someone who is. It's probably my number one running back target this offseason. CMC, always pretty good. You mean Ken Walker? You just got to remember there's a strong ceiling on Ken Walker. Like a top 12 and a disappointing top 12 at that. But it's still good. He is still good. And in this running back landscape, that should be more valuable in 2 seconds. Should be more valuable than a single mid to late first as well. But yeah, I still don't see higher CMC level expectations which is fine because again, he's one of the very few that can have at least the top tier of expectations, or second tier of expectations for a running back this year. Right now in Dynasty. Sorry, I'm very tired. So Superflex PPR in semis, just went through that. I'm trying my best, Ragdad. Thank you. No PPR, 12 teams with flex start 9. Quarterback in semis on the 103 and 104. Toilet bowl. Off-season moves. Okay. I haven't even finished season moves yet. That's fine. Well, you're really strong everywhere. And so we're just going to apply general dynasty principles. It's a super flex, and you've got 3 pretty enticing quarterbacks, but you don't have Kyler's your only solid top tier quarterback. Fields, I got strong questions about Fields, and Bryce, I think he's solid in value. He's a solid value move right now. He's going to have good games, I hope, next year. His value is sure to rise, and even if it doesn't, this offseason it should hold, even with a terrible rookie performance. He's so well drafted. We know what he did in college. I don't think he's going to be any more difficult to trade, although perhaps a little lower value. And that's why we're hoping for those good games. So your quarterback room is pretty good. The problem, if it is a problem, is that you already have your running backs and you don't need them for 3 months. Unfortunately, with the running back landscape like it is, and should be and will be this offseason, I can't say sell running backs easily because I don't think you get what you need for them, and you don't have improvements to make outside of adding value. Your wide receivers are great, and so you can't even say like trade them into a top tier wide receiver because you kind of have them. So let's see, running backs. I would be trying to boost your running back quarterback too. Because they're a little more sure than those running backs as well. So if I can take, I don't know, JT and my first and Fields and go fishing for, Allen or Mahomes. Mahomes had a disappointing year this year, or Herbert because he got injured. Like that's the main where my head would mainly be at this offseason. Those picks, by the way, the 3 and the 4 are great picks. Sorry about the toilet bowl. Especially in this class in a Superflex league, so I wouldn't be looking to trade them. I was assuming your pick would be late. But yeah, that QB2 spot, turning it into a Mahomes, an Allen, a Herbert, to sit alongside Kyler might be what I try and improve. Otten and Waller, it's cute that you mention them in the breath of everyone else that you put on your team, but I don't think they're things. They're just a part of the pile of stuff you have to add to trades this offseason to, tear up that QB2 spot, or I guess try and you're just keeping Cooper forever now at this point. But that's the only spot I can see that I would definitely be interested in thinking about this offseason, and use your picks. I think outside of great deals, those are going to be great picks, only getting more valuable for the next 3 months. Start 2, Flacco, Geno, Mullins. Well, Mullins is going to be one. can't I spell Mullins today? Seriously, it's a problem. It's going to be Nick Mullins and probably Gino, if I were to guess. Because it's spelled with an E. That's why. No, Flacco. Oh, I would enjoy starting Flacco in the players as well. So yeah, Flacco and Mullins. Let's do that. Woo, Mullins, baby. Yeah, right. No problem. Pete, you got to believe in 5th round. I believe in all lower drafted prospects. Obviously, I don't believe in I don't believe that players who weren't particularly good relative to other good college players or other players that went on to be good suddenly become good in the NFL. I don't think that's where most shine. I made a mistake with Puka a little bit this offseason, but not in my ranks, not in my evaluation. It's mostly in the way I played him. Because he was lower drafted, I should have been able to acquire some of him. But I stand by the core value that he tripped at me is I don't believe in single game or small sample efficiency, especially in college players. But he wasn't high drafted enough either in Dynasty or in the NFL to really exaggerate that value. But that profile is not something I'm going to continue to hunt. It hurts us much more often than it helps us. But yeah, Puka clearly was more than his profile. Gavin Ferguson heading into the second round of playoffs. 12 teams who flex start 10. PPR 1.75 tight end premium. Give Puka the 103 and the 112. Get Jefferson and Pitts. Is Pitts somehow now startable for a playoff team? I don't think so. I don't know. I want to start any Atlanta player in the playoffs, to be honest with you. Yeah, it's tight end 14. I mean, Justin Jefferson's nice, but I don't know. My mind's on him in the playoffs. He's ranked second overall at the position for this week, actually. So maybe I should shut my mouth. It is Justin Jefferson. The 112 here doesn't hold much value compared to everything else. Like the 112 for Pitts, cool. Puka and the 103 for Jefferson. I don't know when I'm going to come in on Puka's value this offseason because I have some soul searching to do because I made a mistake on him. I'm low, don't roster him. So I misplayed his rookie draft a little bit. And so I have a little bias. I have to do some soul searching to find out where I should value him. Like if that was Josh Downs, where would I value him? The 101 maybe? I think I still want Jefferson over him. The 103 in a super flex. So that's a quarterback, probably. Or like a really good wide receiver. There's at least 2 really good wide receiver profiles in this draft, from what I've glanced at. Plus a quarterback. So the 103 is really valuable. Sorry, this one's difficult. Give me a second. I don't know. Puka's still top 12 for this week. So it gives you an edge in terms of the starter rank. I don't know. I start Kyle Pitts this week, though. From a pure value standpoint, I think Jefferson still wins this slightly by most people's standards because get Justin Jefferson, But I think that's probably underselling what Puka did this year. If he was anyone else, kind of a thing. If he was, like, say, one of the prospects that was drafted in the second round, hang on, wasn't he? No, he's 5th round. Then I think his value would escalate more. I'm surprised because the amount of hype that was on him pre-season, I would have thought his value escalated to where this was a ridiculous idea. I don't think the startability of Jefferson this week over Puka really factors in. I think both are must-start players for most teams. So it's really a debate on the 112 for Pitts would be a good trade for Pitts, to be fair, pretty good. But not too far off, so I can pretty much scrub those. So it's really Puka and the 103 for Jefferson, and I think that's almost too much for Jefferson. I mean, it's fine. Yeah, I think I would take the Jefferson side just because using the fact that I would rather start Jefferson than Puka this week because he's slightly higher ranked as an invisible part of this trade. But damn, that shouldn't be that should be a lot. That should probably be the Puka side by this time this offseason. Well, not this time, but 2 months into the offseason should probably be the Puka side. But I want Jefferson, so that's where you are, Gavin. I will probably take Jefferson there, but you're giving up the ransom. You're being ransomed, and that's okay. And if you can trade for Jefferson, get Jefferson, but that is pretty rough. Yeah, Genji's a little more full-throated about it, but get that smooth money. Yo, Pete, what's going on with your hair with our man Josh Downs? I don't know. I've been thinking about that. I was hoping for a stronger finish to the season to carry his value in, but you got to realize or recognize that I had lower expectations for him and Dell than someone like Addison, even if they hit. Like Pittman's clearly the wide receiver one on that team. He's a little undervalued in Dynasty. I don't think Josh Downs is better or going to ascend Pittman in Dynasty. I was hoping for a stronger finish so his value would be a little bit more tradable. But I thought he could be a strong top 24 wide receiver, and he was showing that. And I'm worried that him rounding out the season a little weaker won't even escalate his value up there strongly because we've got a lot of top 24 wide receivers right now, So I might play the value game. He's going to be an add or a sell, depending on where it goes. But I definitely don't think he's under-recognized right now. Dynasty owners are going to put him, 10th, 11th round-ish in drafts. If that, he'll be a top 30 wide receiver, maybe. And that's about fair, for that range of outcomes. But I really haven't broken down the NFL from an off-season perspective yet. That's just my feeling on it so far. Bobby Ham, 87. 1 QB, half PPR, rebuilding. Drafted A-Rich, A-Chain, Roshan, Reed, Mims, Douglas, Wilson. Earn the 101 next year, but no other first or seconds. Draft Marvin Harrison Jr., right? How much would you want in return for that pick? Like I say, I really haven't gotten into my rookie evaluation. I've done enough to know that it's not just smoke and mirrors. Marvin Harrison Jr.'s profile looks solid, and that's just based on my data to 2022 as well. It's a 1 QB. I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is probably going to be the 101. There's not really a running back that can even contend for it, and there's not a wide receiver that's outside of a draft day surprise. I don't see a wide receiver profile that can ascend him, if you know what I mean. Maybe one, maybe another one in getting close to his tier, but he's head and shoulders right now. So yeah, and also I think the important thing I can say is you're just going to draft the best player according to you, not me, not anyone else. But don't draft based on your team or the fact you're rebuilding. So if Marvin Harrison Jr. is it, you take Marvin Harrison Jr. there. In terms of what I would want for that pick, because you're rebuilding, you want more things. It's that simple. You just want more and more value. So for a start, you want another first this year because you want to keep trading and you want to keep dealing with this draft guys. So they're going to give you a first of some sort, and depending on what it is, depends on what else I want. But I would be willing to throw in even A-Chain, even Roshan, even Reed, definitely Mims, Douglas Wilson, adding them to a trade with your 101 to get multiple firsts. But the 101 should probably come at the price of 3 firsts at this point. It should be probably a top tier asset now. Because if it's not now, then it will be by the time we get to that draft season. I do get a little nervous about wide receiver ones in general on rookie ranks, as we've seen over recent years. We do get hits, And that doesn't say anything about the player, to be clear. Marvin Harrison Jr. looks pretty good. But when I'm rebuilding, I'm mostly concentrating on value. And so my head would be in that, can I get 3/4 of value out of this Marvin Harrison Jr.? And really, it's going to be dependent on the trade. And that's where my head would start. I want to trade down and down and down, maybe make a draft pick this year. Who knows? But you're essentially trying to trade back and accumulate value elsewhere. And everyone that you mentioned there, apart from maybe A-Chain, but even he, I would put in the potential list, is someone to entice someone else into one of those trades as you continue to try and trade on and trade back. But you don't have to. You can also just drive Marvin Harrison Jr. and, assuming all goes right, profit from that next season or the season after that, for that matter. I'm looking to buy him as my running back 2 with a team that's like Breach. Yeah, and he's a fantastic running back 2. It's like, yeah, I can't come up with a comparison right now, but Ken Walker should probably, he's a top 12 running back. So a top 12 running back in Dynasty as your running back 2 would be excellent. It'd be awesome. I'm not the guy who discounts lower drafted players or lower conference players necessarily. I don't like the fact his numbers aren't good. He was highly efficient in a small sample. If you widen your lens, his college profile looks mediocre at best. And that's hurt us more often than not. Mostly with high draft capital players, though, because that's mostly where the touts come in. He was really good in this smaller sample. So yeah, that's what it was. Best pizza toppings, Hawaiian. I don't care what anyone says. Pineapple belongs on pizza. I don't get the hate. I don't. I like it. I like it a lot. Genji league winner. When is it rookie season, Peter? And now, last week, it's been rookie season for like 4 weeks for most teams. I'm just starting to get into it, though. When the college season ends, I'll ask someone to ask people, and I'll get the 2023 data, and I'll start grinding it out and putting it into the 2023 database. But I don't want to do it early because I don't want to do it twice. But yeah, it's already rookie season, to be fair. 12-team PPR, Flex Pacheco, if he's healthy, or Jacoby Myers, finding a replacement for Pittman. Yeah, I just mentioned Pittman better than people think, but getting an injury in the player sucks, obviously. But it is the story of the players. Pacheco's like a pretty good start this week. I think he's top 15 running back. Yeah, running back 15 exactly. Or Jacoby Myers. I don't think I wrote this up in my article a while ago. His role's been consistently falling. I think what we saw earlier in that offseason so strongly faded out a while ago. And so this is one of the, I actually think the running backs has the upside as opposed to wide receivers winning the flex in general. In your decision specifically. So I would start Pacheco for both the floor and the ceiling. Pacheco's be where I'd put my hang my hat right now in the playoffs. And Myers has even got a worse matchup according to 4for4, just looking at their adjusted fantasy points allowed metric. I'm so disappointed in myself for not having any Tank Dell while you were telling me to draft. I'm disappointed. I didn't separate. I had Dell, Reed, and Downs all as players I like, and Mims. But I had Downs and Dell above Mims and Reed, if I remember right. In my tiers, I have to check this out this offseason again. I want to self-evaluate. So what am I saying I'm disappointed about? I want to just do Tank Dell victory laps, but the way my process has molded and matured over time, I can't say I just hammered him everywhere, I got Tank Dell. He's on one of my running rosters this year. He's been a significant addition for me, and I think I got the valuation right. But he didn't stand out versus Josh Downs any more than I would like to now think. that Dell was the one that stood out. But I really like Downs. In the tier, I probably would have taken Downs over Dell. And Downs has done fine. He's done pretty good. And Dell's been phenomenal, even relative to that. So I have some self-evaluation to do there. Have I maybe molded the players I like or matured it into a place where it's less helpful than it could be? But yeah, Tank Dell's been fantastic. I'm glad you remember it that way. I hope I was that forceful. But I'm worried maybe I could have been more in than I was. And then maybe, Genji, you would have grabbed him a few places. He's old and small, I said. We like old and small around here. Also old and tall, says me. I've seen some people say Puka is top 5 Dynasty wide receiver. He probably should be. Here's the thing, Genji. I want everyone to feel that way so I can just be the grumpy old man in the corner saying, I still prefer Joe and Waddle. But if he's not being valued there, then I have to point out he probably should be. Like, who are the wide receivers that compare to his rookie season in terms of points or numbers or volume or what he did for fantasy? It's got to be 2014 wide receivers, right? Or Jefferson. But Puka's an earlier draft class. He was an older prospect. So, that some of that equalizes out. But if he's not being launched up in ranks, and last time I checked, he wasn't launched. He was the head of the class, don't get me wrong, but he wasn't launched. And I was surprised. I was expected there to be a differential where I could admit he should be there, but be slightly lower. And last time I checked, he was kind of underranked. He was kind of ranked where I would like to rank him and be slightly lower than everyone, if any of this is making sense. I mean, yeah, he probably I would want the market to value him up there, or I think he's undervalued. I don't necessarily want to trade for him at that value because I still have my biases about my college profiles, even as stupid as that is. I want to get Jordan Addison plus for him, But, yeah, I mean, what more could he have done? What more has a rookie wide receiver done? To be fair, that's a guy struggling with it. And thanks for everything you do, Peter. I don't know much, man, but you're welcome for all of it. And happy holidays to you and your family. You too, some new. Do you have any opinions on the accuracy of projections providers you've been averaging each week? Who stands out? It's something I want to look at now. I'm starting to accrue a backlog of a history of my own projections using the average. Something that we were highlighting in the Discord fairly often for DFS players more than anything else is some are significantly more matchup sensitive than others. They're all a little matchup sensitive, obviously. 4-4 does a very good job finding a middle ground. I think 4-4 probably the most solid. PFF is the most willing to get on a horse and ride. And when it works, They seem to be, just at a glance looking at it every week, incredibly matchup sensitive. And they do not follow the crowd when it comes to that matchup sensitivity either. Like I said, 4-4 is adjusted fantasy points line. It's a really good, strong, solid way of looking at good and bad matchups relative to fantasy. And PFF was often on the exact opposite end of the extreme. And again, when it worked, it looked great. And when it didn't, it was like, why are you even trying? But I kind of like that too, especially when they're trying to do that. It's more DFS-y almost. And when you know what they're trying to do, you can evaluate it into what you are trying to do when you're trying to use it for making start-sit decisions, right? As far as opinions go, that's what I've got right now. 4-4 still remains to me the king overall. I love the way they find edges and remain relatively it makes it sound mundane, but mature about it. They're slight adjustments. They're reasonable things. They all make sense and it adds up. And when it likes a player over consensus, it's by a reasonable amount. Whereas PFF is more likely to rank a running back everyone else is ranking 33rd, first overall. Whereas PFF will put him 22nd, 18th, so you start him, but you're not starting him over a top 12 running back. Whereas PFF, his projections literally would lead you into, no, I will start him over CMC in this fictional example. So both interesting. They've got those elements to them. And like I say, PFF is taking shots and does make its own strong claims too. But PFF was a lot more likely to do it, seemingly because of matchup sensitivity that they were factoring in that doesn't come directly from an adjusted fantasy points allowed metric or a fantasy relevant perspective. Because I imagine they're doing slightly more tape evaluation than fantasy evaluation, which isn't necessarily better or worse for our thing. But it was interesting. All really solid. Fantasy Pros, I've had them in there forever as well. Also do a really interesting job. Another one that is free. So everyone can go and look at every week. And I think that's remarkable that you can get consensus start sit ranks and you can also select your experts if you want, but perfectly free. And they are also really solid ranks, much closer to the median, much more likely to do something that's less unexpected and find those secret edges. But again, you're trying to get it right more often than you would get it wrong. And Fantasy Pros for free gets you that. And I think that's remarkable too. I think every one of every predictions I've managed to squeeze in there all have that they're all providing value, if you know what I mean. And in some cases, the price is different. In some cases, value is different, the amount of value. But yeah, all highly impressive. Not so much a one's better than the other, but lots of different takeaways about who is doing what and how that might be useful for people trying to make decisions. Just understanding what they're doing, I think, helps utilize what they're putting out, if you know what I mean. For Fantasy Pros is solid. It's like you are not going to make silly mistakes, even though sometimes, based on our season-long rankings, it might look silly, but they're incredibly solid, consistent, and free, and highly useful and highly usable. 4-4 is much more middle ground. You're going to get really strong edges, but also it's going to stay a little bit more temperature mature, did I say? A little more reasonable. It's not going to make you take drastic decisions to sit what should be a top 12 starter over someone that is a little less likely, because we're doing our own work to try and guess the future, which is always a little uncertain. And for not that it's doing this all the time, but it's going to be a lot more willing to go to that extreme. On a week-by-week basis, so we're doing it here, there, and everywhere, and we're assorting them, because in my ranks you get the position rank and the overall rank, and you can see those green boxes, mostly ranking most of these players in the top 12, and then there would just be a couple of orange boxes at running back and quarterback and tight end every week. PFS saying, no, top 12 for sure. And it's really exciting. And again, like I say, when it works, it's phenomenal. Mike Nabas scores a 9.0 in RAS score and top 12 draft capital. I'll put him in the same tier as Harrison. Like I say, I haven't seen 2023 data, and Nabas came in with a really strong mark. I think it was around 12, which is that guy should probably be ranked close to a first round grade kind of a thing in my own model. But when you're talking like first tier prospects, it was a decent distance away from Harrison, who's scoring like a 19. That's a really significant boundary. Only to 2022 data, and so it doesn't have a lot to work with because it's based on the idea that I have a significant sample size. So my model is not going to be as good as that or whatever else. And especially not without having their final year or as much data as possible on him. It liked Nabas, but it liked him as well as it liked 3 or 4 others. Harrison, on the other hand, was always already standing out last year. Take that for what it's worth, because, I don't know what it's worth. Party hat dude from Dave. Okay, Dave. Pineapple. Yeah, damn right. Best pizza topping. That and coleslaw. Pizza and coleslaw. Just do it. Thank me later. It's great. After you cook it. You don't cook coleslaw on the pizza. Heathens. Timothy Isaac, did I play too much? Acquired JJ this year for the 102, Gibbs, 104, Addison. 204, 24, 105, and Ayuk. No, you got Addison, you got Jefferson. You never pay too much for Jefferson, when you can trade for Justin Jefferson, you just trade for Justin Jefferson. Did you give up a bundle? Yes. But like we've seen with Gibbs this season, he's phenomenal. But he's a new Swift. He's just a different Swift. That makes, not on a player basis, not based on the person. He's his own individual, and they're both phenomenal. Talent-wise, he might even be a little more talented, as was suspected, than Swift in terms of fantasy production. But he's still highly role-playing dependent on that team wants to run him as they ran Swift, and when Montgomery's healthy and on the field, that's what damn well happens. And they'll get someone else to do it. Which is, again, why I prefer Bijan and the Brees type profiles, because they got that higher level, that higher ceiling available to them. But Gibbs has been great this year, though. And Addison, obviously, I liked Addison a lot, and he's done very well this year as well. But Jefferson, is one of those top tier assets. They're just always a different kind of unicorn within a group of different kind of unicorns. I was hoping, and I'm still hoping, Addison can become one of those, but Jefferson is. And Gibbs is really, really good at a running back position, which is bleh. And Gibbs is one of those few solid, young, great talents with scoring. So I don't want to undersell it, but he's not, relative to that position, he's not CMC for me, or that level of value of difference maker, or Eckler for that matter, or Alvin Kamara, or what I think Brees and Bijan have shown spurts of being. But he's really solid, really great, really good. He's like the catching version of Ken Walker, I guess I could say. And the 105, which you're assuming is one. No, by now you probably know it's the 105. 5's a solid pick. If it's a super flex, that's a really solid pick. If not, it's all right. It's a pretty good pick. But I'm not squeamish about it. Did you give too much? Well, you gave 3 firsts for Jefferson. And 2 of them you knowingly gave away, and they're already top 5. So probably 1 top 5 pick in a 3-pick trade for Jefferson is probably fine. But 2, you already knew it was 2, and now it turns out to be 3. You didn't get him great, but I don't think you overpaid. This is a weird thing about value. I mean, what's a Ferrari worth? What's a Ferrari worth after you drive it down the road 10 miles? It's slightly different, although it doesn't make sense. The valuation changes based on some number that's held over your head in some blue book somewhere. Technically, this is too much. Is it too much really, though? You're fine. It's Dynasty. And, you're making trades with a team that's also pretty happy with what it's got, because it got a little bit, probably a little more than it should. I actually think that helps your league. If you want to look at secret additions to your trades, people should be willing to lose trades a little bit, but it's at a loss, really. Am I making sense at this point? Yes, it's too much, but for Justin Jefferson, it's okay to pay too much sometimes. Yeah, I think that's what I'm saying. Hell yeah! Marvin Mims is killing me. Yeah, he's been the one, right? We all kind of liked him as well. And that's what I'm worried about. Like, I like Mims as well. He was in this conversation of, I think he has some decent upside. And Rashee Rice and Mims were kind of the same tier for me. And it's too easy to remember, forget pain and remember pleasure, right? This is what our body tries to do. So, like, I remember liking Rashee Rice, not as much as Zach, but I remember liking Rashee Rice. But I like Mims too. I don't think I valued him that differently. And I like Tank Dell a lot, but I don't think I liked him more than Downs. I think I had them relatively close, if not exactly the same. And I think I might have had Downs slightly higher if I had to make a choice. And Downs has been good. He's been good. It's been, like we said, disappointing. It's dropped off slightly. But it's too easy to say, I like Tank Dell, without remembering I didn't have him that far separated out from Downs. And I really want to go back into my ranks and read my notes and remember my thoughts on it, because the kind of thing is why my process, I think, has gotten better with rookie ranks. I haven't found better models or better evaluation. I think I've just found where sometimes it feels like I'm getting it right more than I am, because I forgot the pain and I remember the joy. And vice versa sometimes too. And then I've got that tendency to, if I'm out on a player, I just won't even consider him in the 4th round. And that's stupid. I can't say I'm going to stop doing it, but it is stupid. Otherwise, I could have ended up with Puka in a few places because some of my friends that aren't on the Dynasty Grind, but I do like and I do think they do their work, did like him a little bit more. And so in the third or fourth round, when there was very little else to choose from, I probably should have just grabbed him based on low draft capital, their word that their evaluation process liked him more than mine did, and very little upside outside of that. Instead, I was defaulting to tight ends and running backs have upside in these rounds. And since I had knowledge of good evaluators or people that I like, liking him a little bit, a lot, then I probably should have just defaulted to that instead of I'm out, so I'm out. But this is self-evaluation. It doesn't really help you out too much. But I do have that tendency. Justin Jamar, AJ Brown, Marvin Harrison. Who's next? Oh, come on, man. I haven't even got to Marvin Harrison yet. Who's next? I know. Jimbo Jones. There we go. Malik Nabers for sure. Yeah, I wasn't assuming this was an actual rank since, three of them already in the NFL. Nabers, I've heard, is meant to be the wide receiver too. It's not who came up for me. Like I say, he's in a solid tier. But let me see 23 data before I say ranks, actually. Gavin Ferguson, no Ramondre at practice. Still happy to giving a late second, hopefully 212 for Zeke, and an early third. Yeah, I think a late second and a third for Zeke for a team that might need to start him in the playoffs is solid anyway, right? These aren't first, Screw it, Gavin. The point of fantasy is to win. Yeah, that's actually very true. Sup, Lakers ex-commanders. Welcome back. Pretty sad. Lost my matchup by 4, and it's because I started Mullins over O'Connell and Kincaid. Oh, that's rough, man. Fantasy football, honestly, legitimately isn't fair and doesn't make sense sometimes. Like, anyone can win. You can have the better team. You can be better all year, and then... Moving from start 8 Superflex to start 9 Superflex. That's cool. I actually think expanding, it's like changing from a 10-team league to a 12-team league. I actually think there's a level of expanding the number of players that are valuable and therefore decreasing some of the other players' value and makes it a better game. And I think starting 9 is better than starting 8. I actually like starting 11, but there you go. Any changes to look at, or is it basically the same? It is the same, but I would treat it like a league expansion. The more players that are getting started every year, the more players are valuable, or slightly more valuable. And also, like I said, it does decrease those at the top a little bit. The smaller the starters, and the smaller, in the same way that in an 8-team league versus a 12-team league, the smaller it gets, the more studs and dudsy it is. You just need studs. That's it. And the more it grows, the more like Josh Downs, Michael Pittman, these players are wallopingly more valuable to start on a week-by-week basis because there are 12, or depending on the size of your league, and 12 extra players starting every week, which means their points are slightly more relevant and providing slightly better edge if they're your 4th overall starter, if you know what I mean. If this is making sense. But yeah, I would see it as, it's not as drastic as 8-team to 12-team, but it's like, from a 10-team league to a 12-team league. It's not drastically changing everything, but it's changing it a little bit. It's giving those at the top a little less value, those positional difference makers, well, just a little less edge. You don't have to be quite as studsy and dudsy. But also at the same time, more players have slightly more value. And I actually think that's a good thing. So there are some great players that when your league is shrunk down to that start 8 lineup and don't really have significant value. Like Tutu Atwell didn't matter to that league this year, even in his good games. It's like, I don't know when to start him, so it doesn't matter to try to. Isaiah Pacheco doesn't really matter in a start 8 league, to be honest with you, because the consistency isn't there. And you just need to go studs and duds. So it changes a little bit, and that's the way I would think about the effect of it as well. It's not drastic. I would turn over my roster necessarily, but it does mean some of your depth isn't now depth. It's starter caliber value. I like that. At a certain point, it gets ridiculous. But 9 is more than solid. I think you got room to grow. And he gave Ayuk. Sheesh, man. Yeah, the Ayuk throw was... I didn't even get to that. I forgot. It's fine. He has to start someone. But yeah. So this year, just draft wide receivers in round 3 with decent capital. Actually, based on trends and forces, it's now going to become a worst prospect to evaluate for. Like, we have had a lack of lower drafted players hitting recently, and I think this year is going to correct that slightly. And I think we're going to go back to average, if not above average. So technically, we're slightly less likely to see, or not more likely to see, like we were this year, a lower drafted player do anything of particular, especially in their first year. I think, and again, I haven't even opened up this trend tab, my database, or added the 23 data, but just based on knowledge of the way it works, I think we're going to be looking at more likely third-year breakouts. And the draft capital difference that we're talking about this offseason in terms of who has been hitting is going to neutralize. And so we're going to go back to standard expectations. Early draft capital is typically better. But yeah, I guess in the third, fourth round, I used to always throw flyers on wide receivers until, it's such an exasperating experience. Because there's always wide receivers to like. So, but running backs and tight ends consistently hit more often, provide better starter replacement value, if nothing else, in their rookie season over and over and over again. And if you just concentrate on those trends long term, and that's why I was taking them over someone like Puka, it does work. But again, there are some prospects that, again, some people really like Puka. Like they wanted him as a wide receiver 1 even after the draft. And to go completely anti that is fine, actually, I think. But in the 4th round, I could have picked him up in the 4th round, and I have people that we all pay attention to on Twitter who are like, no, this guy's got it. Even if we all disagreed, maybe we should give him enough credit to spend a 4th round pick on him instead of, I drafted Josh Weil over him at one point, I think in the 5th round. Like, I was going a little too hard in the that's not my guy, era. But yeah, I can't climb on high horses tonight. Hop or Olave in the flex? No, I don't know off the top of my head. I follow my work. It's Olave by like a gnat's ass hair, Hopkins is projected 0.06 points fewer than Chris Olave. Like, it's as narrow as it can be. They're both really solid starters. If you want something else to go by, Hopkins has like a top 10 difficulty rating in terms of his matchup according to fantasy points allowed, adjusted fantasy points allowed. And Chris Olave's got like the opposite end of the extreme. His team again, Los Angeles Rams ranked 27th in terms of stopping wide receivers scoring points. So he has actually a top 3, 4, 5, a top 5 matchup for his position against the Rams as a wide receiver. So Olave's got the better matchup according to that as well. It's even got a higher game total. So Vegas is expecting there to be more points scored between New Orleans and Los Angeles Rams, which is always a good sign that they think there's potential that your players in that matchup score more points. So I think it's Olave, but it's very, very close. It's very close. If you just prefer watching Hopkins play, which it's not a bad take. I just want to watch Hopkins this Sunday or have a reason to watch, or this week, and reason to watch DeAndre Hopkins, that would be enough of a difference maker for me. But if asked, and I will call to answer for starting Olave over Hopkins. I'll stand to answer for something like that. Getting a 12-team start 10 if you want to sweat. Yeah, right. It's just I like having good players having more value in leagues makes sense to me. It's it's why tight end and kickers get frustrating because why tight end specifically gets frustrating because if you double the starter size, like 2 tight ends, you just have all these players that don't run good having value. Whereas if you 1.75 it doesn't quite do the right things. It gives too much extra value to those at the top who are already those that were valued and doesn't do enough to that middle class that are actually really good. Tight ends are a real one to get right in the scoring system. I don't know we have a right way of doing it. But that's kind of how I think about expanding it as well. What current backup QBs would you carry into offseason that may have a chance to start next year? I mean, I guess that's going to start being a more valuable question, right? Now, I think what we have to remember, and again, this is off-season takes before I really break it down, we do see this every year. Gardner Minshew, Davis Mills last year. We see surprisingly good quarterbacks come in as backups and do pretty well, only to not really. I mean, I know Minshew was doing pretty well again this year with the Colts off and on. In best ball, it's been awesome for me because I still had him from that one year. But this year has been phenomenally strange, and the number of quarterback injuries, the high turnover rate, and quarterbacks doing a pretty decent impression of startable level quarterbacks. I think if there are different ones, there's Howell and there's Purdy, because both had different college metrics. They were both stood out as pretty interesting prospects who probably weren't going to do anything because most prospects are highly drafted and well thought of by the NFL before they do anything. So those two are the different ones. In terms of next year backups to roster, it is going to probably start making a few extra spots, but trends are trends and they wax and wane, right? We've had a highly unexpected number of them become viable this year. So we're probably not going to see that directly next year. It's not a I just saw it, so I'm going to see it again type trend. It's I just saw it, so I need to remember that happens now in the NFL and try to get in on it when everyone forgets that it can happen, if that makes some kind of sense. Like, I think a lot of people might be starting to make room in their bench for backup court, which isn't a bad way of going, especially in a super flex, which a lot of people have had as an element of their game. I can't say I focused on it. I was focused on trying to tier up and having elite quarterbacks, which definitely backfired in my Superflex leagues this year. But I'm probably going to keep doing it because I think it's going to become more viable because this year was so terrible. If you see the wax and wane I did, just nature of a market and people, and we see something and we react to it fairly. And I just want to be unfair a little bit. And sometimes you can catch it out just if you do it. If you don't do it too hard, you can even do it without completely destroying your team if it doesn't work out. So, yeah, I think backup quarterbacks might start to gain just a little bit of quote-unquote value, not that you could easily trade it, but they'll start to have more rosterability, should we call it, for more teams and more leagues, because this year's been so wild, which means I probably want to walk in the opposite direction just a little bit until that quietens down. Because I don't think it's typical. I don't think this number of backup quarterbacks stepping in and doing pretty decent is normal. And so we probably won't see it as often next year, for example. Did you see Njoku breakout coming? No, he's broken out before, though, to be fair. And I didn't like it then. I said we're probably won't see this consistently. So this is actually me getting it wrong twice. I didn't like his breakout. And then I continued to undervalue him because I was like, I don't know about that. That's a little late. There's a little unusual breakout. This year's been pretty decent again. I still... He's part of the middle class, and there are so many more tantalizing members of that middle class in the rookie year this year. Trey McBride's breakout isn't an unusual... Like this kind of weird type of weight. That makes more sense to me based on the history of the position. That's a little more... Delaney Walker is probably the weirdest guy who played running back for like half a decade and then broke out at tight end position. Njoku could fit into that category, I guess. And I loved Delaney Walker when he was playing because of Zay. But I like the Fairmouth. I like the Sam Laportas, even the Trey McBrides. I think they have better paths into being Mark Andrews, into being Travis Kelce, those real, and George Kittle, those real difference makers who did a lot relatively early or with an expected third-year breakout. I actually think Trey McBride's going from nothing to something is more interesting than David Njoku's constant up and down, then finally a breakout year, now finally a follow-up year. I find that less patentable under previously difference-making tight ends, but it could easily continue to be solid. So, no, I've gotten David Njoku so wrong. I liked him in his rookie year, and I've hated him after that, and that's exactly the wrong. I've I've been down when I should be up and up when I should be down on the David Njoku roller coaster for his entire career. What is he at going forward? I wouldn't have him. He's probably a top 12 tight end in Dynasty. But that top 12 position is a really competitive group right now. Run through it. You got Kelsey, you got Sam Laporta, you got Mark Andrews, Trey McBride, Evan Ingram. You're probably going to have to fit David Njoku in there. You've also got Dalton Kincaid now, and we're already up to 7. All right, it's not that tough to get him in the top 12, but it's a much more competitive group than it was even this time this offseason. And that wasn't a ranking, by the way. It's just trying to remember that. Let's see how difficult it was to get to 12. 28 in 2024. I don't care about age, you know that. He's basically the tight end 1 since week 6. Njoku, he's all right. Ingram keeping the Pitts dream alive. Yeah, that's exactly it, actually. Pitts is the other guy who probably still belongs, obviously, in the top 12. But it's all value still. Pitts continues to remain that Evan Ingram arc, and that is such a weird comparison. And that I specifically said I was not making in his rookie season. I wish I'd specifically said I was making it at this point, but there you go. Do you still believe John Mingo can have a decent career? I wasn't in on the John Mingo thing. I thought he was fine. I know Jake Anderson, my former co-host, liked his tape a lot. Small sample, skill and trait based. I said, sure, maybe based on that. The NFL loves that stuff. But if you're talking decent career, that may well never come into the fantasy radar or may pop in and out. But I've never particularly been in on the Mingo trade. It made me nervous when someone like Jake likes him. And again, like the Puka thing means that I should be willing to throw a 4th-round pick here or there on these types of wide receivers. But I keep just being out instead or going running back or tight end. Technically, that works long term. But it can. When it hits, it's Puka, you know. Will he have a solid career? I hope so, man. He's a young kid trying to live a dream, all that stuff. B-Dags, 12 teams for flex, 11 PPR, no tight end premium. Would you trade Andrews straight up for Kelsey if you're competing? Yes. Yeah. Kittle, Hawkins. Oh, I forgot Kittle, and that's terrible of me. Hawkinson, Faramu, thank you. Yeah, now it's getting tough to stay in the top 12. Carl Pitts, I think we got that one. Yeah. I could just look at my ranks, but I'm not gonna. Partly because the DLF ranking engine's been broken, so I haven't been able to update my ranks recently. Oh, no, it's not called that. It's called Draft Tracker or whatever. All right, last time I updated my ranks, which has been a while because the ranking engine's been hurting on DLF. Kelsey, Andrews, Laporta. I still have Pitts 4th. Ooh, I got to change that. There. Hawkinson. That's the name I forgot. Kincaid, Kittle. Got it. How can we forget Dallas? Got it. All top 12. Pat Muth, Evan Ingram, Jake Ferguson. That's another name I wanted to mention. Like, he's strongly in there. I actually have Trey McBride below that. But again, this was back 5-6 weeks ago. So the last time I was able to update it. I actually might have written the date down. When was the last time No, I didn't write it down. Okay. But yeah, this was back before Trey McBride continued his breakout. I think Maya, outside of the top 12, Maya, Dolchich, and then you've got just points per players who keep being able to show points. Well, I likely move up. Not really. He's still behind Andrews, right? But he's probably going to move up, but nowhere near startability moving forward. This was a good week from him, though. Donald Parham showed some hope. Nah. Luke Musgrave, I know a lot of you all liked him, and he's had his games this year. Higbee, Schultz. I still like Greg Dolchich from last year. All right. Yeah, there's a really solid top 12 players where people will have ranks and tiers within, but like there wasn't like 5 last year. We had an argument about 5 different tight ends, and this year we've got 12, where it's like, well, look, a whole 12 top 12 tight ends that you could pretty have in a roster in Dynasty. It's pretty cool. It's different. Likely, Dolchich, Kraft, Ferguson are interesting. I think Ferguson's really interesting. He's helping me win in one place this year. Michael Meyer, yep. Dallas got it. Next year, Browns, Javonte Sanders, Taylor and Zeke. And that's before you get to Brock Bowers, who's like, according to the grapevine, one of those significant Kyle Pitts level prospects, right? But it's meant to be legit. I took a glance. His prospect profile looked solid. And again, especially my tight end model requires a final year. It needs to know their best year. But he scored like a 6.9, which is top 90th percentile, if I were to guess. But it wasn't Trey McBride. But again, I don't have Bowers' full career yet. And tight end's tricky. Thoughts on Trevor Lawrence beyond this season? Top 12 quarterback in Superflex. It's interesting, isn't it? Like, I really like the passing quarterbacks right now, because we've been talking about running quarterbacks so long. Like, it's been easy to be high on Herbert. It's easy been high on Lawrence. It's also, conversely, been easy to be high on Jackson, despite being a rushing quarterback, because he's the one rejected by the running quarterback universe, it seems. But passing quarterbacks continue to interest me because there's less reason to give them hype. You can talk about less things that they're good at, quite literally. You just have to talk about how good they are at quarterbacking. And that can be there's a little less to say, a little less content to make. I think Lawrence is fine. He was struggling a little bit this season, but I don't think that team's really found its final form, as it were. Him and Ridley just couldn't get on the same page for a while. The team focused on rushing game, especially in key areas of the field. Not too much, because they did well at it. ETN did fantastic. But more than I think I was expecting, and more than I think really helped Lawrence flourish in that system. I think he's got a bright career ahead of him. I think he's still really good. Those are just thoughts. It's not an exact answer, but forgot about, I think I said Musgrave. I think we're just behind in the comments. So Hunter Henry, he's one of he deserves a roster spot down deep a group, Gerald Everett, Dalton Schultz, and now we're talking of a type. Bowers last year at Georgia, 18 points per game. Pitts was at 14. I don't know how much that matters, but yeah. I've been told Bowers is phenomenal, like by the people who normally know about it before me. And like I say, my data strongly requires as much college information as I can, and I don't have that yet. It's just notable to me, especially after the Kyle Pitts debacle. Being hesitant on him paid off a lot, even though he was a really solid prospect who did really well his rookie year. Sometimes just you get lucky. Genji, forgot about CJ Stroud, did I? We still like him in the top 5. Yes, I would have it. Mahomes, Allen, Hurts tier, and then you've got Herbert, you've got Burrow, CJ Stroud, maybe a tier right there as well, because then Lamar Jackson and Kyler Murray, and then you've got Dak, Lawrence. And I think that's a separate tier here. Just before Dak, Lawrence probably belong in a tier together. I did just pull up my ranks. How did I have it 7 weeks ago or whatever? But yeah, I really like valuing CJ Stroud as one of those really selectly. Let's see. Hurts, Mahomes, Allen. Then I have Herbert, Murray, Stroud, Jackson. I was just throwing a little Joe Burrow hate there, but I should probably back off that now he's injured. But yeah, I really like having CJ Stroud at least towards the top of that tier of great quarterback. Tua is the other one I'm forgetting to mention, who belongs up there as well. Feels like tight end, we were struggling to find real outside of the top 2 who you got. Now we got just a wealth of options. Genji, I hate to disappoint you, but you stopped talking. I stopped getting questions, and I'm still really, really tired. Thanks. So sorry, it's a bit of a terrible show this week. For a start, it's just me. For a start, it's me on like 7 liters of NyQuil. I feel like I haven't had any NyQuil, but I feel like I have. But we will try and make up for it after Christmas, when everyone's happy, healthy, and not zoned out. And we know the final results. Again, I'm sorry I'm not much use this week. I do have those projections out. If you don't know where they are, hit me up. Twitter threads at PA Howdy. I'll send you a direct link and you can enter the names and you see the start sit. But you don't just see my projections order. You can actually pull up all the rankings from the different sources I'm using. And again, that's where knowing a little bit about what projections are trying to do can help you make a decision instead of just taking someone else's decision. It's another reason I kind of like projecting that way instead of just, this is my rank. That is how I will start sit them, by the way. But for you who aren't me making it, you can go, well, this projector is trying to do this, and this guy is trying to do that. I am trying to do this, and you can make a decision from a collection of really great, smart people trying to do NFL projections. And then you get to make the decision, but also have a fall guy, right? Whoever you choose to follow or listen to, even if it's just me. Or just use me as your fall guy anyway, I don't care. I'm not saying I will sell you those projections, by the way. I will send you a link to them, okay? Especially since I've been so terrible this week. I do update them as I can. I just updated them, so they're updated as they can be until at least tomorrow. And I update them throughout the week as well. Just to try and make up for the fact that I'm so out of it this week. But appreciate you guys. Sorry we're all sick, tired, and look like this. But we really appreciate you. Talking to you guys every week has actually been one of my favorite things this season, including winning games. It's been one of the best bits. So I really appreciate you all. Take care. Good luck this week if you are in the finals, and if you're not, on the second week of the playoffs. And if you're not, we'll get them next year. I actually mean that. We're just going to improve. We're going to take a better shot at it next year. That's literally fun too, for me anyway. We'll get them next year. Or next week, whichever it is for you. Look behind you.